I'm getting lazy. I don't like having to do all the stuff in the studio that I usually do. So the lighting in here isn't really good. I've tried to get where some of the light from outside will come in, and I think it'll improve as the minutes go by. But I just didn't feel like doing the whole thing with the studio this morning. I hope everybody's okay with that. I'm back, and I've got my Second Amendment cup. I think you can see that. It's good to be back with my Second Amendment cup, and yes, it's caramel cream coffee. So, good morning, everybody. Today's the 15th of September, 2020. Thank you, Matthew Hill. Let me know on 5x5. There's been a lot of difficulty with the internet. I don't know whether it's on purpose. We're hearing that there are DOS attacks everywhere, and I wouldn't be surprised that the social media is also playing games. So let's just hope that this continues this morning without too many interruptions. And just be patient, okay? Indulge me a little bit because we could run into some problems, especially with the subject matter this morning. I'm going to mention a couple things right off the bat. In the description box below are two links. One to Nancy Morgan Hart's most recent video about why the governors are using the state of emergency to steal money from you, the taxpayer. Okay, and I said this a long time ago. I said that Trump needs to rescind the national emergency on the COVID so that the governors don't have any reason to continue this nonsense to get the money. Well, Nancy Morgan Hart did an outstanding video about that yesterday, and the link is in the description box below. Also, and to think that they would put us through this, they would steal our liberties from us or attempt to, so that they could get money for their state coffers and for their cronies and for their crony capitalists in the healthcare industry is really disgusting. Do you realize that we have no friends in government? They're all thieves, liars, and deceivers. All of them. And Trump won't rescind it because now he's committed on a number of fronts, especially with the vaccines. And I hear all these Q people and other people saying, he's not for the vaccines. He says it's not mandatory. No, he didn't give money to Gavi. No, he didn't give money to Gates. The second link in the description box below is a guy who did a very, very good exposition on that whole subject. And it's about 12 minutes long, I think. You need to go watch it because it's outstanding. He did an excellent job. I wish I could be that creative, but all I'm good apparently at is just talking. But he did a great job, and Nancy Morgan Hart also always puts up great graphics and videos during her narrations and her reporting, her commentary. So go see both of those when we're done here, okay, please? All right. And in that same vein, if I can see, it's pretty dark here, the signing of the Abraham Accord is today at the White House. And that's really going to be the subject of our conversation this morning, but in a way you're probably not aware of, okay? So I want to bring some things up there, and we're going to do that. I think I've already covered this part. Yeah. And then the only other thing I want to talk about is that President Trump, in his address yesterday or the day before, talked about he wants to make it illegal to burn the flag now, or desecrate the flag, the American flag. Now, no matter how abhorrent it is to do that and to step on the blood of those who have, and to spit on the blood of those who have tried to do the right thing and protect us, I understand how disgusting it is for people to do that. But as Mark Pantano explains, and I fully agree, burning the flag is a First Amendment right. And yet President Trump, who can't get his DOJ to arrest insurrectionists, coup plotters, seditionists, traitors, major pedophiles, they're going after all the little low-hanging fruit. He can't get them to do that, but he's going to get them to go after flag burners. That guy has his entire, he's got everything ass backwards. Everything at this point. And it's on purpose, ladies and gentlemen. He's not stupid. I've come to the conclusion that, and I've said it for a long time, that he's there to keep the conservatives from rising up as they continue to take down our country. And when you go see these two videos down below in the description box, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay? He is exactly what I claimed he was, and that is he's a deceiver to keep us from, because if Hillary had gotten in there, we would have risen up. And they already had the Democrats, they already had the leftists. They didn't have to worry about them. They had to get the conservatives to be carefully led down to hell. And he's the guy that they chose to do it. And I'm convinced of that 100%. I've lost friends over this. I've lost good contacts because some who had a stake and wanted to get back into the Trump administration, some of those, they have a stake in it from that. But then there are those who just, they hate Biden so much, they're on the other side of the spectrum. You get those people that hate Trump so much, but that on the left side, they hate Trump so much. But then you have people on the right that hate Biden so much. And I agree, but frankly, both of them are just as bad. They're just different colors of the same cloth. So the problem is that, people, because I will not back down on my problem. They want me to talk about how bad Biden is. We don't need that because we're not going to reach the people that think that Biden's a great person. We're not going to reach them. I've been told, well, there are those people that are sitting on the fence, Roy. They need to have that argument. No, that's already been made, okay? If they can't see it, they never will. But Trump is not who he pretends to be, and I will not give him any accolades. I mean, I'll congratulate him every once in a while for a good thing he does, like going after this situation where the racial business in the government, although the CDC isn't following his order. Which, does that surprise anybody? So that was a good thing he did, but he does these little things like that, but the really major things he does nothing about. He goes after flag burners. You're right? Yeah. At the same time as DOJ, he'll go after flag burners, and he's letting the governments go after moms who refuse to put their masks on. That's what he's allowing to happen, what he wants to happen apparently. And his DOJ won't go after real criminals. But it's all designed. He has no problem in the government. I mean, he has people that hate him. There's no doubt about that. But he's doing this on purpose. This was all a show, and I'm convinced of it. And that's where we're going now. Notice the title of this video. Okay, notice the title of this video. What do I mean? It's time to pucker up, and you better check your liver. Well, in the ancient times, there were some euphemisms that were used. For instance, girding your loins. A lot of people try to make that a sexual thing. It's not. What happened was the men too wore basically loose-fitting clothing, and when they went into battle, if they didn't bring those loose pieces of clothing up and tie them around their lower body, especially around their loin area, they could trip and fall. Plus, you kind of wanted to make sure things weren't hanging so loose down there that they could get damaged in the fight, right? So they would gird their loins up. They would bring this loose clothing up and put it around. It's almost like wearing shorts, okay? So their legs were bare. It was so that they could fight and not trip and not, injure themselves. That's one euphemism. The other is check your liver. Check your liver. When you get about ready to go into a situation, if it's a bad situation, you kind of get that butterfly feeling in your stomach. Well, that's the same thing that they're talking about, that the kings would check their liver to see if they really wanted to get involved in this fight, okay? And of course, pucker up. I think everybody knows what that means, right? All right. Several of us, I don't know what Chuck Baldwin has been saying, Pastor Chuck Baldwin. I do read his material quite a bit. I really like the guy. Michael, Jonah of Nineveh on here has been very forthright, I think, somewhat cloaked in his message, but he's been very forthright on the scriptural and historical situation as it existed in the past and how it's playing out in the present. I have a lot of respect for you, Michael. I think you know that. As a matter of fact, he wrote me last night on Twitter and said he's looking forward to a time we can sit down and have a little bit of scotch together, and I'm looking forward to that too. Hopefully, it happens at some point. If not now, Michael, when we drink it, when with Jesus in the new kingdom, when he partakes with the wine, fruit of the vine, with us uh, at that point. And yes, he does drink wine, and it's it's not pure of the grape. Okay, they ain't like that. Okay, and there are others. I have a lot of respect for Nancy Morgan Hart, of course, but she comes from the political analysis side. Uh, Mark Pantano, he comes from the legal side. There's Legal Man on, I don't know his real name. He's on Twitter and gives a lot of good information if you haven't watched him. And then there's several others, which I could name, Mark Passio, and there are others. But the real followers of Trump, and I'm not going to mention any names. Nancy Morgan Hart said I had to stop mentioning certain names because it sets people off so bad. So all I'll say is, and she's right, by the way, you should always listen to the counsel of a woman. You don't always have to follow it, but you better damn sight listen to it. So Nancy, if you're here, I want to thank you for always giving me good advice, okay? I tried to stop this a while back. You all might remember this. I tried to stop this a while back, and Nancy got on my case. She said, "You better not stop," uh, which I thought was quite flattering, and I was honored, humbled to some extent too. But at any rate, so she kicked me in the butt, and I started up again. So there are a lot of people out there that have discussed these issues that I'm going to discuss right now, but I'm going to give you a little bit more information that they haven't. If you want background on what I'm talking about, unfortunately, my book, and I'm not trying to sell it because you can't buy it anyway, The Crimson Thread, discussed all of this a long time ago when I first published it back in 2006. I've given video instruction here on YouTube about this topic. You can go back to the religious studies section in the playlist, and you can listen to some of that. It's not all there because I'm not very good at making sure that I put those videos that I talk about in the playlist, but there's a lot there. I've talked about who the Jews are and who they are not. I've talked about the Herodians, the Edomite Arabs posing as Jews, and et cetera, which is what Jesus was talking about. And when I was looking something up this morning, which I'm going to discuss here, it reminded me of what I said in my book and what I've talked about here. The evidence, Josephus was an historian. He was actually a Jewish general in the first century, and he fought Titus, the Roman, the Roman commander who eventually became emperor after his father Vespasian. And Josephus was captured. It was really funny because just before they were captured, they all agreed, he and his men, his commanders, all decided that they were going to commit suicide. So Josephus said, "Okay, well, I'll kill all of you and then I'll kill myself." Well, he didn't have the guts to kill himself, coward. So then he goes to Titus and Vespasian and he says, "Hey, I'm going to help you guys out." So he became a traitor, actually. And he was such a traitor that guess who he said was the Messiah? Guess who he called the Messiah? It wasn't Jesus. He talked. There's a thing called the Testimonium Flavium in Josephus, which is accredited to Josephus. May have been, it may not have been. It may have been a tongue-in-cheek thing on his part, which it probably was because he had already called Vespasian the Messiah. Did you know that? A Roman general, a Roman emperor. He called him the Messiah. Save his skin, right? Well, other historical information in there is kind of interesting, and I'm just going to say this real quick. There are two central characters to both the meridian of time when Jesus came and presently. And even the Jews know, even the rabbis, let me put it that way, know this, okay? In Malachi, for instance, I brought this scripture up a lot of times, the last book in the Bible, as a matter of fact, the last chapter in Malachi in the last book of the Bible, it says that, "And in those days shall I send Elijah the prophet, who will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." It's the last, almost the last verses in the Bible, in the book of Malachi. So the rabbis know about this return of Elijah the prophet. And in Jesus' day, they accused John the Baptist of being Elias, which is the Greek form of Elijah. They knew about, this is going to blow some Christians away, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. They understood the process of rebirth. They even accused Jesus of being a reborn Elijah. I'm just saying, okay? Now, there's the spirit of Elijah, certainly. If you know anything about the scriptures, there's the spirit of Elijah. And as I've often said, the I am that I am can actually transfer to I will be whom I will be. In other words, the spirit of these, the types of people that they were, with the types of principles that they were, could be showing up. Okay, so I'll give you that. By the way, this isn't just a sermon. This isn't scriptural. You got to hang on to where I'm going, because this is very critical to what's going on today in the White House, September 15th, 2020, on the signing of the Abrahamic Accord. And if you've looked at that coin that we've been talking about, you'll see all kinds of symbolism on it. A lot of other people have talked about it. I'm not going to go there other than to say that it really shows where they're taking us, and it's to worship Satan, and they're taking us through the AI and the digital systems and the vaccinations, which aren't vaccinations. They're giving us a mark. They're giving us a tracking ingredients, elements. And you'll see it right, it's on a sword. It's on the sword on the back, okay? I'm just telling you, okay? And it ends with Saturn. You'll see Saturn and a star being the last things that are up there. Well, Saturn is a symbol for Satan, okay? That's what that is. It's not saying that they're going to go to Saturn. No, they're telling you what they're doing, okay? This was all known. Somebody said, oh, it was being done by a private organization, this coin, the Abrahamic Accord coin. So I'm not worried about it. It has nothing to do with the government. No. Donald Trump allowed his signature to be on it, and if he did that without his permission, if they did that without his permission, that's a crime, and he can go after him. Political sanctions, sue them, whatever. No, he's going along with this. Sorry, Charlies. I'm really sipping this down this morning. So, with all that as a background, Josephus, going back to Josephus talked about John the Baptist. Okay? And he also talked about, not in any great detail, about Jesus himself. There are only a couple places where it's mentioned. The Testimonium Flavium is the one I'm talking about initially. It's a paragraph long, and it flies in the face of what he had said about Vespasian earlier being the Messiah. So he wouldn't have put that in there. He would have risked his life by putting that in there to say that Jesus was more than a man. Somebody added that later, or it was a tongue-in-cheek thing. I'm not going to get in an argument here about what that was about, but there is someone else in Josephus that is, without a doubt, the real person that we would know as Jesus today. And I talked about that in my book, The Crimson Thread. And it has to do with Elias, who is the preparer of the way, John the Baptist in Jesus' day, and then the restorer, who would be Jesus. This is scriptural from the Old Testament, okay? And the rabbis know about that. That's why we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about in a minute. Now, in Jesus' day, the person that we know in the New Testament is Jesus. I hate to tell you this, but it's probably not the right guy. I hate to tell you that, but it's probably, at least the characterization, the personification, even up to and including some of the genealogy, which if you look in Matthew as compared to Luke, they're different genealogies, and there's a reason for that. I'm not going into that today. Where I'm going is that John the Baptist was the preparer of the way. He was the Elijah of his time. Jesus was the restorer, and I talked about this in my book and in my subject matter in here, if you go to the religion studies, called the Taheb, which means restorer. So Josephus knew that this Taheb, the restorer, was there. That was the real character, and he was crucified by Pilate. That's the real guy. Okay? Now, so what's happening today? Jared Kushner has been in the Middle East doing all of these peace deals. Now, there's nothing wrong with peace, as I said the other day. But what's important is that we look at the timing and we look at the motive behind the peace deals. Okay? It's like any other signs of the times. This is evil intent. But seeking peace isn't what's wrong. A lot of people try to say they're trying to seek peace between Israel and the UAE and Jordan and all these different Egypt, all these different Muslim countries, that's evil in and of itself. No. But the timing of it, along with all the other signs of the times, are things that you have to watch. So, Trump sends Kushner to do these deals. Now, you know how I feel about Kushner. I did some information on Twitter the other day, and I've done it here, about the characteristics of Kushner to the typical traditional viewpoint of what Jesus would look like. Kind of effeminate, kind of frail. That's been the traditional viewpoint of Christians of what Jesus was like, when in fact he was a very powerful individual. Started off kind of sickly, I might remind you. You probably don't know that. Talks about that in the scriptures. I'm not going to go there today, but he did have some problems. But his spirit was so strong, of course, that he overcame them and became a very powerful man, physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually and all that. But at any rate, so I've been suspicious of Kushner, but that's immaterial. There's still an Antichrist spirit there regardless. Guess what the rabbis called Kushner? These rabbis that said that they have met with the Messiah. Their Messiah that they say is here now. Remember, several months ago I said something significant is going to happen around Rosh Hashanah. I didn't say Rosh Hashanah the first time. I said sometime between middle of September and the middle of October, something significant is going to happen with the revealing of the guy. You remember me saying that? Then I got a little bit more brave and I said, look, they're going to have their Messiah show up sometime around Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, which are the highest holy days in Israel. Okay? Not that they follow the Torah there, but the nation state doesn't. It's going by the name Israel as a deception. But at any rate, so I've been telling you that something was going to happen this year. I was fairly certain of it because of the events that were surrounding things, okay? And I haven't trusted Trump because he's played their game. He's not for America, ladies and gentlemen. It's like I said, he's not our champion. He's our executioner. He's the guy to keep us distracted with this hand while he stabs you in the back with a knife with this hand. That's exactly what he's doing. Go look at these two videos in the description box and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So, and that's just two examples. So getting back on the subject matter, Trump sends Kushner to do these peace deals. You know that Trump has been called the King of Israel by Israelis, rabbis, etc. First called Cyrus, then now called the King of Israel. His name is at the Golan Heights in Trump Heights, spelled with a tet. I talked about that before. He was on the coin with Netanyahu as the two sons of light, the two witnesses, against the sons of darkness. And of course the Cyrus coin, which I've talked about before too. So we have all these things pushing it. And then he moved the embassy to Jerusalem. Where is the third temple? Is the third temple even prophesied? No. And Michael, Jonah of Nineveh, brought that up the other day. There is no promise of a third temple. What the third temple is, there is a place. Michael probably isn't aware of this, but there is a place where there could be a temple legitimately, but it's not Jerusalem. And I'm not talking about Mormon temples, okay? There is a place. I'll just tell you, it's the old Shiloh where the Ark of the Covenant was originally kept with the Mushite priests. Shiloh is the proper place for the temple, not Jerusalem. But that's another story. I won't take you down that road today. So the Jerusalem temple is a false temple, even if they built it. But there is no promise in the scriptures of a third temple. And we could talk about the Christians who say, yeah, that's because we're the temple of God now. And there's truth to that. Okay, there is truth to that. And how is the temple going to be defiled? Well, look around you. Look at the world today. The people have defiled themselves. They defiled the temples that God has given them, that God has breathed the breath of life into. They have defiled it. And they pushed it so far that we have transgenderism, we have the drag queen story times, we have men wanting to be women, women wanting to be men, the desecration of the body, the whole situation, pedophilia, I mean the whole thing. It's an abomination of desolation, or the desolation of abomination. It certainly is. But something else is coming down the road. So Kushner has been doing these peace deals. They're having the signature celebration ritual there in the White House today. Might even be going on right now. But this is the point. I didn't know who to peg as the Antichrist. At first I thought it might be Kushner. But guess what the rabbis are calling him, ladies and gentlemen? Anybody tell me? Does anybody know right now what the rabbis are calling Kushner? Remember my discussion about Elijah and the restorer, about the preparer and the restorer. Who are the rabbis saying that Kushner is? Publicly they're saying this. Do you know who it is? Not the Mashiach. Nope. John. Yeah. By the other name that he was known as, Elias. The rabbis are saying that Kushner is Elias, the preparer of the way for the Messiah. So they're saying he's not the Messiah. They made that statement here just a few days ago, and I took note of it, and I've been kind of letting it percolate to try to figure out what in the world's going on here. It could be the person they consider the Messiah could be several other people, but considering the structure in the New Testament and in the Old of how these people would relate to each other, there is a familial relationship between the preparer and the restorer, not just a spiritual job. So the rabbis are openly saying that Kushner's not the Mashiach. There's only one other person that I know of in the world today that could possibly match that description. And it's the one that they've already called the King of Israel, Cyrus, one of the sons of light. Do you get my drift? No, not Alan Dershowitz. Now, I said the other day that it would have to be somebody who's from the Jews in one way or another. Look at Trump's genealogy. But more importantly, look at what he has done. Is he for America first? Really? A lot of people say he's Israel first, and I would agree wholeheartedly. The state of Israel is a deception. The state of Israel is being run by Edomite Arabs, as I've said before, who pretend to be Jews and are not. The real Jews, the Judahites. They're Edomite Arabs, the same guys that run Saudi Arabia. Same family, same group of people. Notice the Saudi Arabia and Israel have never really fought each other. Have you ever thought about that? They've never actually engaged in combat, ever. So what is this? What are these rabbis saying? These rabbis are saying Kushner is the Elias, the preparer, similar to John the Baptist, which they will admit, even though they don't want to use New Testament terms, they're using Old Testament terms, like in Malachi. So who's the restorer? Who has restored Israel to a prominent place in the world today? Who has moved the American embassy to Jerusalem? Who has been named in the Golan Heights next to Mount Hermon? Who has been listed on a coin as one of the sons of light? And who signed the back of the Abrahamic Accord coin? Who has maneuvered us into a place where we're being forced to wear masks now to hide our identity so that we can't have the breath of life of God or see it in other people, but hide our identities and our faces in shame, using plausible deniability, most certainly. This person who forced us to do this can force responsibility over onto governors and onto mayors and other people and not have to take it himself. Who has bankrupted our country to such an extent that it'll never recover, and probably rightly so, because we've eaten the evil for so long. We deserve this. Not that we can't repent, but we won't. It's not going to happen. Oh, there'll be a small remnant, yeah, but the major part of the country is not going to. He's taken us down, destroyed us economically, not given us principles, but talked about money. That's it. There are no principles, as Mark Pantano says, in the Republican Party. It's a personality cult. Despite the arguments and the apparent battles that are going on between these evil people, because the scriptures said, what have I said? The wicked will destroy the wicked. Just because they're opposing Trump doesn't mean that they're not with him on his agenda. They just want to be the ones in charge. That's all it is. So, who is the only possible person in the world today that could be this Antichrist, this false Messiah? I've told you, it's not going to be somebody that looks nasty, that has horns and buck teeth with fangs and a tail and red skin. It's going to be a businessman who has a lot of charisma, that just like in Jesus' time, they will flock to see him in droves, in hordes. And he carefully leads you down to hell. There's only one person it can be that I know of at this point. And taking into consideration the familial contacts required in the Torah and in the New Testament. I mean, I suppose it could be Ivanka. Somebody said, well, couldn't the Antichrist be a woman this time? No. Not according to Daniel. Okay, and Daniel's the critical one. If you don't know that, go look it up. Daniel 8 through about 13, something like that. I think something significant in the revelation of this whole deal is going to happen between now and Friday, or at least between now and the end of Yom Kippur, which is the end of this month. I think it's the 27th and 28th of, I can't look it up. I think it's it's Sunday the 27th and Monday the 20th. So it goes from, Yom Kippur goes from sundown the 27th, which I think is Sunday, to sundown Monday night the 28th. You don't have to be, not an eloquent speaker. Now that's interesting, you should bring that up, because guess what? Moses was not an eloquent speaker. That's why he had Aaron. All right? Believe it or not, and Moses was a Christ-type figure. Aaron was a preparer-type figure. So actually, the fact that Trump isn't a great orator, despite the fact that people like Dan Bongino and others think that he's such a great speaker, I've never thought so. He's not a great orator, but the Antichrist doesn't have to be. As a matter of fact, to be a great orator would probably be a negative, that would probably not be the guy. I'm sorry, but Trump matches the description almost exactly. And people say, but he's a Christian, Roy. He's not of the Jews, as you said that the Antichrist would be. His hair is, they say that he has his hair the way he does because he's had surgery and, he's upset. I guess he supposedly got upset at Melania, the story is, because her plastic surgeon goofed it up or whatever. No. He keeps his hair the way he does because he's a Rechabite follower. What's a Rechabite? He doesn't drink alcohol, and he doesn't cut the corners of his beard. Basically where the Nazarites came from. And as it says in the book of Daniel, he will not regard the desire of women, which could mean a lot of things. I saw Jonah, Michael, you talked about that the Antichrist wouldn't be gay. That's not what it means. And you're right, that's not the only thing it means. It says, hi Nancy, good to see you. I talked about your video yesterday about where all the money's going. You did such a great job. That fit in right with what I needed to talk about this morning, because it proves what's happening. So Trump is a Rechabite follower. Go look it up. You'll understand where that came from. It's where the Nazarites came from lately, which is what Jesus was. Jesus was a Nazarite, not from a place called Nazareth that didn't exist at the time. The closest thing to it was actually the Qumran community in the Dead Sea area, the Essenes. But anyway, that's another story. The point is that Trump allowed his daughter, who was a Christian, to marry a Jew. So she basically repudiated Christ. Well, that's her business and that's her father's business. But I think underneath the table, it's very obvious that Trump is not really a Christian. He's a Christian in name only. Remember what Jesus said. Those who call themselves Jews but are not Jews but are of the synagogue of Satan. Now, as I explained the other day, synagogue doesn't mean just the Jewish synagogues. It means all these different churches too. It applies to our times. You could replace it with church. Those who say they are Christians but are not Christians but are of the synagogue of Satan or of the church of Satan. Okay, you don't even need to use the word synagogue. Don't get tied down to the Jewish term for a gathering place. It's the principle that matters. The fruits, you will know them by their fruits. So Trump has been going to some Christian churches or things. All right? But his fruits don't. He says he's never done anything wrong, that he has nothing to repent of. Who does that sound like? Lucifer. And that's not Lucifer's real name, too. You know that, right? Seleo ben Shikar. I've talked about that before. So, there's only one person in the world that I know of, that, especially with all the other parameters that have happened lately, who could be considered by the Israelis, by the rabbis, to be the restorer. If they called, since they have called Kushner the Elias, the preparer, there's only one person that could be the restorer in their eyes. Something really bad is going down here, ladies and gentlemen. Something really bad. All the evidence at this point points to Trump as the Antichrist. And I thought it was Barack Obama. He was another preparer, by the way. He was another type of preparer. Getting back on the thing about women, he will not regard the desire of women. Jonah of Nineveh was right on that. Being gay is one possibility, or at least bisexual. That's one possibility. But the scholars have said that what that, and I disagree with the scholars on a lot of things, okay? Some of them usually have some type of agenda. But when Daniel says he shall not regard the desire of women, a lot of scholars say, well, what that meant was because of the context that he didn't regard the gods that the women worshiped, that the gods that they desired to worship, because he considers himself God, the Antichrist. So that's how they get around that. But the desire of women, when you look it up in the Hebrew, it talks about what they hold precious, what they consider to be pleasant, what they consider to be desirable. Well, does that sound like a worship of some god? Well, you could probably say so, but what it's really getting to is what? The desire for men, the desire for children, the desire for the feminine things. So, in fact, it means that he disrespects women. Does that sound interesting, considering all we know? And I'm not going to take it any further than that. He could be he could be gay, but gay is or homosexual, but as one possibility for not regarding the desire of women. In the Hebrew, it doesn't say that he doesn't. The possessive goes to the women, the desire of women, not the desire for women. So it probably isn't meaning that he's gay, but it does mean that he could swing one way or the other, depending on the circumstances. I'm afraid it does. But the bottom line is that he will not have any respect for women. Not really. He can put on a good show, but he doesn't really have it. So all the things that have slipped out about Trump in his private life, I've defended him. I've said, look, he hasn't committed adultery as far as I can tell according to the biblical law. I don't know of any instance personally. I mean, there might be something that's hidden, but I don't know where he has violated the biblical law on adultery. Not even fornication. Most people think fornication is sex outside of marriage. That's only one definition, and it's very specific. Because the fact of the matter is, it says that if a man humbles a maid, he has to take her to be his wife and cannot put her away all the days of his life. So you can have sex with outside some official marriage because the act is the marriage. Now she can divorce him, believe it or not. She doesn't have to accept the marriage. She can say, no, I've decided that you're a pretty nasty dude. I don't want anything to do with you. As far as I can tell, Trump has never committed real adultery. I don't see that, where he has been with another man's lawfully, legally married wife, committed wife. I haven't seen that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. All right? But he has done things I wouldn't do, talk about grabbing women by the private parts and things like that. So he shows that he doesn't have a real respect for women. So that fits the scripture. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. The next few days are going to be very telltale. If the rabbis said that they've met with him, remember I talked the other day, all those rabbis met with Trump in the White House several months back. Do you remember that? That could have been the time that these rabbis are talking about they met him and realized that they're going to call him that. Or it could have done it when he went over to Israel. I don't know when this meeting took place, but there are several possibilities about when it occurred. And it certainly could be that Kushner, as the Elias, as the preparer, could have already told the rabbis that it's Trump, and then they would have agreed because of the situation that's been going on. He's deceived the whole world. Look at the mess that the world's in. The Democrats attack him for, that he's going to ruin the country and all that, and then the Trump supporters stand back, and because the left is attacking Trump, they're going to defend him even though the left is right. The left is correct. That's where we are. We refuse to apply principle. One of the initial complaints that I had against Trump, that he was about selling your birthright for a bowl of porridge. I've accused him of that even prior to his election. And it's turned out to be true. So that's my message to you today. The rabbis are ready to are prepared and ready to declare who the Messiah is. And in our viewpoint, not everybody, I'm not speaking for everybody, in my viewpoint, this of course is no Messiah. Look at the fruits. The fruits say that it is not, that it is the Antichrist. Kushner, they've declared to be the Elias, the preparer. So who is the restorer, the Tacheb in their mind? There's only one choice that I can possibly see. Not saying there couldn't be some other person, but to fit the type and shadow, the archetype, it has to be Trump. Evil is afoot, ladies and gentlemen. Prepare accordingly. That's all I got for you this morning. I do chat, but well, let's do a little bit here. Let me see what Nancy had to say. Like I said, Nancy, I'm getting lazy. I'm using my phone too much rather than going, I'm back home. I could have used the studio, but it's kind of in disarray. And I just didn't feel like setting it up this morning. I don't know if I ever will again, actually. My emphasis now, to be honest with you, my emphasis is I have changed totally in the direction of my preparations. Nancy knows a little bit about it, and some other people. Nancy's pissed. Yeah, boy, I could tell, Nancy. Me too. Me too, Nancy. I'm glad I have you as a friend. I'd sure hate to have you as an enemy. I mean, wow. And I love the fact that you don't put up with any crap from anybody. I really like that. I'm going to say this publicly. I probably shouldn't. I'm not trying to compare you to my Carol, but my wife that died in 2008, but she is just like you. She didn't put up with crap from anybody. I'll tell you this story real quick because it's really funny. Oh, I got on her bad side one time, and I knew I never wanted to go there again. But that's another story. The story I want to tell you about is she was a hired gun, they called them. She was a very highly respected salesperson. She could sell anything to anybody. Made me wonder why she picked me, because she could. If I told you who approached her, you'd say, "Well, what did she see in you when she had all those opportunities?" Yeah, my question exactly. But what she did television commercials on different products. She did marketing studies. She sold new products at like fairs and home shows to test the demographics and that kind of thing. And so there were these things that came out, and they were called chamois. Maybe you all know what they are. They sold them in different colors, blue, orange. I think they even had some green ones. But anyway, she did those, and then she did the inkjet refill kits that came out many years ago. And so she was testing those. So she was at this show, and she was demonstrating this inkjet refill kit. And there was this heckler, and she had a huge tip. They call it a tip, all these people that were around her, because she was so entertaining and she could sell anything. So she probably had 20 or 30 people surrounding her, listening to her pitch, they call it, to sell the product. And there was this guy sitting there with these chamois, right? He had just bought these chamois. And he started heckling her. Well, Carol didn't put up with that from anybody. So she tried to ignore him for a few minutes, and finally, and I was there, I saw this happen. So finally, she stopped, and she looked right at the guy. She set the little container it was about the size of this coffee cup, the container that the inkjet refill kit came in. And she puts it down, she puts her hand on her hip, and she looks at this guy and she says, "You know what? Those chamois that you have, you can take one of those and stick it in this ear and pull it out the other side, because you haven't got anything in between there anyway." The guy put his tail between his legs, slithered away, and everybody in the tip bought from her. That's what she was like. So anyway, thanks for being the way you are, Nancy. I appreciate it. We shouldn't have to take any shit off of any of these people. And so I don't. Okay, that's all I got. Let me just check here again. Where's the I'm right cup? I'm trying to send a message to you. That's not as important now as being prepared. I never really liked saying anything like, "I told you so." I've never really been like that. I used it, though, because the cup was, when I saw it, I went, "Wow, this is incredible. I got to have that cup." And it's really my favorite cup. But I think the message here is more important, to be prepared. Okay? All right. Let's see if there's anything else here going on. I can't go all the way back. I'm sorry. I know I've been talking. It's been 50 minutes already. Your cup is plain. Nothing wrong with that, Gary. That's an interesting concept, Michael Alexander. To be like Moses and won't be allowed into the new earth. Yeah, but he's no Moses. No, all of the indications are that the rabbis are considering him to be the Messiah. the Antichrist. In our point of view, the Antichrist, in their point of view, the Messiah. That's exactly who they consider. I mean, I don't know who else it could possibly be at this point. Yeah. Oh, you know about that. Ohio 82. Have you heard if they sacrifice the red heifer? You know that, I talked about this several years back when they were trying to, genetically make the red heifer without spot or blemish. They've been working on it for years, and yes, apparently they finally arrived at it. Now, those of you who don't understand that, you have to have the ash. You take the red heifer, you sacrifice it, and then you burn it, and you take those ashes and you use it to purify things. I know that sounds totally ridiculous, but it's part of the Old Testament law, okay? That before they can do certain ordinances, they have to make this sacrifice of the red heifer and then take the ashes and put it in the mikvahs. A mikvah is like a baptismal font, okay? And then they go in there and they wash themselves in this purified water, okay? It's kind of another idea of the holy water in the Catholic Church, very similar, okay? Except they use the ashes of the red heifer to purify, okay? They do that in preparation for their ordinances in the temple. So they've got something going on. I don't know where it is. There's something that they're using for this temple. It's not going to be built. There's something somewhere. It might be in conjunction with this embassy that's been moved to Jerusalem. I'm really not sure. But as I explained at the beginning of this video, this live stream, that's the false temple, okay, for a lot of reasons. Shiloh was the key, the place called Shiloh. That's where the Moshite priests kept the Ark of the Covenant. Shiloh is the place, not Jerusalem, despite what David did politically and all that. But regardless, to answer your question, I don't know if they've sacrificed the red heifer yet, but it must be imminent because they wouldn't be talking about the Elias being Kushner and that they've met the Messiah. They have to have a purified place for the Messiah to come where they make the announcement. So they may have done it already. I don't know. But that's a good point. You apparently know your stuff. Yeah, the impurity of the dead. Very good, Rolf Steiner. Yeah, if you've touched a dead body, yeah, the ashes of the red heifer were used to purify you from that. You're absolutely right. But it went further than that, okay? It went further than that. But it had to do with the ritual and the mikvahs, okay? But you're right. You're not wrong. It's just that it was more expansive than that. Very good, Rolf. That's good. A lot of people don't know this stuff. It's good to see people who do. Okay, Damascus. Be careful, Joanne Tripp, on discussing Damascus. Damascus means cup of blood. It's not Damascus, Syria. It's not Damascus, Syria. That's been an incorrect interpretation of New Testament scholars for a long time. It had nothing to do with Damascus, Syria. It means cup of blood, and that should tell you a little bit, okay? In the first century, it was considered where Paul was going to when he said he was on the road to Damascus. It wasn't Damascus, Syria. It was the place that the people called the cup of blood themselves. And they were the Essenes in the Qumran community. They called their place Damascus. And what does the cup of blood mean? It means the royal line. Damascus, Syria is a diversion. Just so you know. Yeah, that's another point. Thank you for bringing it up, Annie 0100. I brought it up the other night that Israel has Netanyahu has locked down all of Israel, the state of Israel, because of the COVID-19 thing. They're on lockdown during the holy days, and I talked about why that happened. I'm certain that is all part of the ploy that Trump is doing. He's locked down everything, and people have followed his lead. Look what they're doing in Australia and in New Zealand and in Germany, and now in Israel, Peru. And Trump says he's not responsible. The governors are doing it. No, he set that whole thing in motion. And just like Lucifer, who doesn't want to claim responsibility, he gives it out and then backs off and says, I didn't do anything. Have you ever heard about a demon? You've probably never. Wow, they're interfering with my connection now. So it's time to go. I guess they finally figured out that I'm saying things they don't like. I do believe at this point in time that Trump is the only one that matches the description. The signs of the times are here. Everything is set up. Everything's going on. He's pushing the mark of the beast. And his followers give him every excuse because they can't allow the Dems to make any arguments. Not that the Dems have a reason to make an argument. They're wicked too. But remember, the wicked will destroy the wicked. Stay out of the way. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. Our command was, I saw somebody accusing one of my followers on Twitter the other day of saying, if you're a Christian, you're required to vote. And I questioned that person. I said, where did you get that? I want to see the scripture that says that. I want to see the law that says that, the scriptural or the spiritual law. No, quite the opposite. It says, the command is, come out of her, my people. Do not partake of her sins. Come out of Babylon. Separate yourselves. Stand in the holy place. And what does holy mean? Not some pious location like a temple or a church. It means separate yourselves. Stand in a separate place. Do not partake in their sins. And this whole vote thing is a deceit. Therefore, it's a sin. It's wicked. It's evil. It's controlled by the Luciferians. And they have their anointed one about ready to be made known to the world. God bless you. God bless yours. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground, situational awareness on high. Have your defenses, have your stores. Separate yourselves. Do not take part in any of this. Defend yourselves. You can go out and petition the government for redress of grievances, but don't go out looking for any other kind of trouble. The commandment is to come out of Babylon. Separate yourselves. Stand in the holy place. Stand in the separate place. Do not partake in the shenanigans and the deceits that are going on in the world today. Remove yourself from them. Love your family. Love your wives. Love your husbands. Love your children. Take off those masks and be human beings and breathe the breath of life that God gave to you, which they're trying to snuff out with these masks, and then with the mark which is coming through on the vaccine that Gates and Trump are pushing. Again, go see the information in the description box. Nancy put out the other day, which this other video that I have in the link down there, which is from this other guy. Nancy put out the other day the information on Trump pushing Gavi and Gates. And by taking the money from WHO and giving it to Gates, it was a sleight of hand, and Trump just merely funded WHO through Gates. It's all lies. It's all lies. And my friends who have separated yourselves from me because I will not bow to this fraudulent, deceitful, Luciferian devil, I miss you. But I will not yield. The fruits do not justify me yielding. Again, God bless you all. Take care. I don't want to messing with my upload again, okay? We'll see you.